videoBIO is a company that's designed to make video easy for corporations. And it's interesting in terms of the evolution of our business. We do video across North America, and we've been in business for 7 years now, so we've sort of passed that startup phase, I suppose. And our business model is we have cloud-based video applications, and we also shoot video right across North America in every city. We have over 500 people in the field that are videographers and producers that we assign. They're contracted with us that go and shoot on site. And we handle all the pre and post-production internally. So it may be interesting just to have a conversation about that if anyone's interested to learn more about that. But one of the biggest growth areas that we've seen in our business in the last 3 years is watching our clients build in-house hiring teams and really bring a lot of that work internally. And that's been interesting for our business. We've built our business around that so that we can support clients however they want to work with us. So if we continue to do pre-production for them and then they do the production internally. So it hasn't hurt our business. It has, in fact, we actually work directly with companies, teaching them how to bring the whole competency in-house. So it's a really interesting shift in the market, but it's a natural shift because everyone here is starting to create more video organizationally, and video content creation is just growing. And naturally, people are not going to want to just pay outside vendors to do the video work. They're going to bring that and want to bring that competency inside. So this is what I'm going to cover in the next 45 minutes. And if you want to let me know if there's something on this slide that isn't hitting what you want me to talk about, because I can certainly add that. But we're going to talk about production, resources, investment, technology, content, and outsourcing. So hopefully I'll be able to answer your question. Something else? Yeah?
Where do you find the talent?
Where do you find the talent? Well, in our case, what we have in-house production team of about 15 people that do editing and producing, and a couple of videographers, and then we have people in the field, about 500. Where do we find them? We put out ads on Craigslist, and Mandy's is a really good source for us. And we actually train and accredit our videographers on our system. So we take them through the process of the videoBIO process, because it's a little bit different because it's shoot only. So we do all the pre-production and post-production. So that adds a little bit of value, we find, in terms of videographers in the field who want to plug into the videoBIO shoot schedule. And we can send people out for an hour to do a shoot, and it fits nicely into the schedule while they're doing other things. So it's additive in terms of their ability to generate income. So I'm going to introduce you to Karen. And Karen may be, like some of you in the room, who's responsible for building an in-house hiring team. So to kick it off, I'm going to play a little short video. Not that one. There we go. Meet Karen. Okay, so there's a lot of elements involved in building an in-house video competency. And so I'm going to dive into it with you, and we're going to start with a section on video production. In this section, I'm going to talk to you about building a studio and some of the equipment you're going to want to look at as it relates to the studio. So let me start here with Karen's step one. I don't know if some of those questions may have resonated with you in your process of creating an in-house video competency. But I'm going to start talking to you a little bit here about studios and setups. And feel free to ask questions or chime in. We see all kinds of clients of ours who are saying, look, I just want to start creating more video internally. Where do I start? What kind of studio do I need to create? How much should I be investing in that studio? And there's a couple of different levels that you can take. I mean, we work with companies like Microsoft and PricewaterhouseCoopers who have studios in multiple cities, or 100,000, 200,000 studios. But we also work with real estate brokers who are creating a studio right in their brokerage and want to start doing things right from their desktop. So it's a full range of very small and very large organizations. So this is what I recommend. This is what we recommend. You can actually set up a studio in an office with some basic soundproofing for as little as $5,000. Okay. The studio layout is a 4-point lighting scheme. This is assuming you're doing primarily head and shoulders talking heads, okay? You're blowing out the back with two lights, and then you've got two TODAs perhaps, or LEDs, and then your forelighting in front of the talent. You've got obviously your tripod, and you've got your camera. And then you've got a background, like one of those pop-up backgrounds are awesome. You can spend just $150 on them and then mount them to the back wall or hang them from a post. And we've had some real success. You wouldn't believe this, but shooting with a Sony prosumer camera, which you can actually buy for $500, which gets incredible HD quality video. So again, you don't have to spend an awful lot of money. You obviously need some basic things like a boom mic, which we recommend, or a lav mic like I'm using here. But we typically like the boom mic coming over the top of the head so that you get a really clean shot and you don't get any mic in the shot. So so this is what we recommend for your basic setup. Now, obviously, from there, you can go much bigger. So we just did one of these for a client in New York. And what we did is we did the advising on how to set up the studio. So in this case, they actually had a webcam studio set up, but it wasn't actually set up for video production. So we needed to make a number of modifications because it was a 4-person panel sitting around a curved table like this with a 2-camera setup, okay? And 2 double teleprompters. So one of the things our technology provides, we have a cloud-based video creation platform, but it also has a virtual teleprompter on there. And so we actually set up a virtual teleprompter for them through our technology. But you can also do that using a ProPrompter or something like that, which you can buy for, say, $150 and just load right onto your laptop. So you'd have 2 laptops, 2 cameras. This is the best way to get a wide shot like this with a multi-person panel. This is one of the more challenging things to do is when you're doing interview style, right? You want to have two cameras on 2 people, so you're getting 2 different angles, and then you can intercut the footage in post. Okay, so that's a little bit more intricate. Obviously, if you want to get into things like soundproofing, you're going to want to get those, inexpensively. You can buy that foam that you can apply right to the walls and to the ceiling, and you can buy that for a couple $100 online. Or you can get into a slightly more sophisticated wall-mountable felt panels, which is a little bit more costly, but potentially worth the investment depending on where you want to go with it. You also might want to consider creating a grid for lighting so that everything's mountable on the walls and on the ceiling. If you start going down that path and you want to go a little bit further, you're not dealing with light stands, and it's actually much nicer, and you have a lot more control and flexibility in terms of that setup. Now, this is, in our business, the fastest growing area of all video, and it's desktop video. And at 4 o'clock, I'm going to talk to you about creating an awesome corporate profile video, and I'm going to talk about the YouTubing culture. I'm going to talk about user-generated content, so hopefully you'll come back and listen to that. But this is the number one request. We probably get calls on this about 15 times a day, which is, I'm using your technology. How do I set up an in-house studio right at my desktop, okay? So we recommend the Logitech C920 webcam, which is a peripheral mounted on top of your computer, which is just a slightly better webcam than anything that you may have embedded in a Mac, say, as an example, but that's not necessary if you have an embedded webcam. But this is how people are shooting video now, okay? So they're creating a lockdown setup in their office space with a background, with potentially lighting right at the forefront on their desk and lighting the background. Not everybody's gonna go as far as the lighting, but there's certainly, we recommend that you need to have a really high quality webcam that captures HD, and you need to have a really good audio feed, okay? So that means the reason we recommend the Logitech C920 is because it has a better pickup on the audio than a MacBook, as an example. Or you can do a peripheral plug-in microphone to your MacBook and make sure that's sitting, it's like a USB microphone, but make sure that's sitting on your desktop so you're getting good quality. Because, you know, quality in user-generated video needs to be good enough that it's not distracting from the actual content. That's the key here. So you don't want to have crap quality input, and you don't want to have really bad, hollow-sounding audio. Obviously, the content in your presentation is the most important thing, but if the video production value is not there, it's going to distract from the actual engagement, okay? So this is a desktop setup, and you can do this for as little as $250. So let's move on to staffing. Here's Karen's challenge. Okay, so what we love to hire is people who are multidisciplinary, okay? So if you're hiring people onto your team and you're bringing this competency in-house, you want to start looking for these millennials that are coming out of school that can do everything, you know? You want them to be able to shoot, light, edit, create graphics, content curate, the whole bit. So when we post our ads to attract new people onto our team, those are the things we're looking for. And it's incredible now. They're actually coming all in one person, and they're graduating with those skills. So it's really fantastic to see, because what it does is it allows us to get more skills out of one individual and lower our overall, you know, cost of hire. So this is what we recommend. On your team, you want to have certainly a videographer, okay? What is a videographer? Videographer essentially is a term that was coined about 15 years ago, which is meaning that it's sort of a roaming kind of video person that can do it all, can go on the street and capture and shoot. They can also shoot in a studio. They've got more than just the ability to point a camera, okay? So they're taking on more of the overall producing role. You want to have an editor with graphic expertise, okay? So you want an editor that has the ability to work in After Effects, motion graphics, okay? After Effects and motion graphics are two different things, right? AE is when a level up. Motion graphics most people can do, but not everyone can do After Effects, so that's more animated video. Motion graphics, motion is something that most people can do well, and people seem to understand that sometimes as animation, but it's a lot more affordable to create motion graphic videos than it is animated videos. So when you, I don't know about you guys, but we all work to storyboards, right? So you've got, branding guidelines and templates, right? You start with something that is you're plugging into. And so you need your editors to be able to understand this, the top, the tail, the branding, the style guide, the color palettes. They need to be able to create graphics. They need to be able to potentially illustrate, would be a nice to have. Whiteboard videos, for instance. Some of that's pure illustration and some of that's just software. You may want them to create vector art or some other elements like color blocking and things with motion that they can really turn a video from beginning to end. And we have a lot of experience with this. And again, you need to make sure you ask these questions to the editors. Ideally, in a perfect world, they can also content curate, okay? So that means that they can help you build your asset library and work with a lot of the elements that you're gonna need to be working in terms of the content and the assets of your video. And then you need a production coordinator. So a production coordinator is the person that actually is the bookends of this whole process, right? It's the person that's dealing with the actual media files and all the conversions and the publishing and posting and the distribution and the librarying of that video content internally and working with your server. I mean, there's a lot of elements that you need somebody almost exclusively focused, at least one person, on video production coordination. So that's something that probably is a must-have. And then I have crossed out the bottom too, because you may or may not, and I'll talk about this at the end, but you may or may not need a producer director internally, and you may or may not need a scriptwriter or creative. I like to say, leave the creative to the ad agencies, the ones that actually do creative for a living. We're talking about so many different kinds of video here. We're talking about education, training, profiles, interview, thought leadership. Marketing video and agency level advertisements are just one small piece of the video ecosystem now. So when you're bringing this competency in-house, it may mean your ad agency is still doing video related to your brand and your advertising, if you will, and then everything else you're doing in-house or pieces of that. But you may want a scriptwriter or somebody who has a writing competency and the ability to draft scripts based on key messages and things like that to help formulate. You can plug those scripts into a teleprompter and then work with your talent to actually deliver that. So there's elements there that we'll talk more about in terms of what you want to outsource. So I'm going to move on to investment. So how much are you going to spend on this, okay? So if we go back to Karen's challenge, Karen's trying to build a business case for her boss to bring more of this competency in-house. And so in that, you need to put a budget together to be able to prove out that you can create a return on investment by doing this internally instead of only working with a video production company. So be ready to dive in here for a second because there's a lot of pieces to investment. I don't want to overwhelm you, but okay, let's start with staffing. So we talked about staffing. I'm sure anybody in the room can tell me what you would pay for a videographer. I don't know if we're going to get into actual full-time equivalent salaries, but as I mentioned, you probably want at least a videographer, an editor, and a production coordinator on your team. And again, it depends on what stage you are in growing your in-house competency, and this is going to grow with you. Like in our case, we've got 18 people in-house just dedicated, and then we have our field team of 500. So it depends on how much content you produce. Next, technology. Okay. So you heard the previous speaker speak about OVPs, online video platforms. There's a couple of pieces here that I'm going to talk about in the next section on technology, but you want to think about two things here. One, what is my video capture and creation? Two, what is my video and distribution strategy, okay? So you've got media management, you've got distribution, and you've got video capture and creation. Those are arguably very different things and different technology to support it. I think in terms of how much you're going to spend, You can actually get an OVP monthly for $500, as little as $500. And we work with Kaltura, which is one of our partners that we've integrated with. And I know that you can actually spend as little as $500 for media management and distribution with Kaltura, but certainly it does go up to $5,000 and more if you're NBC or a really big content producer. But you can start for as little as $500, and I would highly recommend that you do invest in an OVP. And then you're going to look at having a video capture and creation technology. And full disclosure, that's one of the things that we do, so just putting that out there. But you can have that for as little as $99 a month. So why do I delineate between those two things? Because they're very different. A lot of OVPs, they're really in the business of distribution and plumbing, but you actually need to capture video. So you need to have a whole video content creation, cloud-based solution that's going to help you and other people in your company start to have multi-point capture within your organization and tools that are going to help them start producing content like a pro. And that's one of the things that our technology does, everything from script manager, online video, teleprompter, video web presentation, and distribution. So we talked about the equipment studio. Again, that can range anywhere from $1,500 up to $25,000, depending on the kind of studio that you want to build. And certainly, we've seen studios in about $250,000 and up, in millions certainly. And then media assets, really important. One of my favorites is videoblocks.com. You can spend $100 and you can get unlimited access to assets, which is stock footage, graphics, and music. So that's an incredibly inexpensive investment as a way to build your asset library. Because anytime you create a video, you're going to want to pull assets in, right? And so Video Blocks is a fantastic resource for that. Obviously, there's lots of different places that you can go, like Shutterstock and others that provide stock footage and graphics. And then you're obviously going to want Final Cut Pro is probably what your editors are going to be using in terms of software. You're going to have other After Effects templates, that some of which are included in Video Blocks. You may want to invest in some others. And there's some great whiteboard video, illustration video software that you can buy now, super inexpensive. So depending on how good your team is and what capability they have, you can actually start to publish some really cool videos. Okay, so technology. Let's see what Karen has to say about that. So I did touch on that in the last segment, but the two key things that you want to think about is, if I want to build a competency in-house, I actually want my employees creating video. It's not just about my in-house video team. I want to have multi-point capture. I might want to do employee testimonials. I might want to do a survey where I actually get people to record in video and then plug that into a bigger video. I might want to have my employees vlogging, for instance. So what you're doing is you're pushing this competency out to your end users. It could even be your customers. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying video content capture and creation. That's almost a totally different thing from OVPs that are about video publishing and distribution and hosting and streaming. So that's why I kind of just break it out for you in this graphic. So this is what you want to think about is video capture and creation over the top, and then video hosting, streaming, and distribution below. And you want to have both. So you want to be looking at things like inbound video capture. What if I wanted to do a contest, for instance, and I wanted to get thousands of my customers out there to record in video? Do you have the technology to do that? What if, in the case, one of our other applications is video bios and video resumes for video employment brands and talent attraction? Do you have the technology to allow you to accept video bios onto your career site, as an example? So it's not just about you creating and pushing video out. It's actually about ingesting video and having the ability and the tools to be able to bring video in. You also need the video media management central cloud storing, video media moderation and approvals. So these are things that you should have with your OVP. The ability to moderate, review, delete, publish video, analytics, all the things that we talked about in the previous session, okay? These are all cloud. You can have on-premise technology as well, depending on how deep into it you're going, but you're gonna start with cloud-based technology, and you may have global teams. You may have people in multiple countries around the world. And this, the beauty of cloud is there's no software installation. So in the case of, these are a couple of interfaces from our platform, but you can see that you can actually house library, manage your video assets, and then also have multi-point distribution. So this sits over the top of, say, Kaltura, again, as an OVP as an example. But you can, all the things that we talked about in the earlier session, send by email, share, copy and paste a link, even generate a QR code associated with that video to put into print media, share directly to social, download, or use embed code with a brandable player. So again, in the earlier session, we heard it's important to be able to brand your player, and I think that's essential. So it's not all about YouTube, guys. I mean, the future is about also publishing and controlling your brand. So YouTube's a really important ecosystem and hosting platform to be able to get within an audience and get exposure. But there may be a priority within your company as well that you want to control your brand and do directed publishing with a controlled brand. And that's where the ability to brand your player is really essential, and the ability to control your publishing. And so in many cases, we recommend that a two-pronged strategy for clients at YouTube and then a branded publishing environment. In your creation tool, you want to have the ability for whoever is out there, or your employees, or whoever is actually creating the content, your customers, you have to be able to do that on mobile, and you have to be able to do it at the desktop, okay? So make sure that that video capture platform has all the different tools so that people can actually be capturing video multi-point anywhere, and that all feeds into one cloud-based dashboard. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but this is just to show Gartner published this in October of this year. There's a lot of OVPs out there. So if you're just starting to understand what OVPs are, you can see how many are in the space. We've integrated with 3 or 4 of them because we're actually agnostic to OVP, and many of these are really excellent organizations. So certainly dive into OVP, just Google it and you'll find them all. Okay, so content. How much content should I be creating and what types? Okay, so again, this is my favorite topic, full production to DIY, user-generated video. Again, I'll talk about this later this afternoon at 4, but this is such a growing area, DIY, and everybody's trying to figure out how to do it well. And again, one of the first steps in how to do it well is getting that desktop setup that I talked to you about. It doesn't have to be in a desktop, by the way. It could be anywhere in any room that would be fitting to your brand and the kind of videos that you want to create. So content strategy, again, just quickly, this is simply to illustrate that you could have so many different types of video content, right? It's not just about the one-hit wonder video, the corporate profile video. It's about all of these pieces. You should be publishing video daily, maybe twice a day, maybe 3 times a day. If you have a great video capture and creation system, you can actually push that content creation out to people that can be producing content for you all the time. They could be pushing that into your moderation. You could be moderating and approving that content and pushing it out. So don't feel like you need to just be creating video within one team or a couple of people. You want to think bigger than that. And these are all the different ways that you can be the things you generating video for. We get this question a lot: how much video content should we be producing? Like, what's the right amount of content? And again, it depends on what stage of adoption you're at. So if you're sort of a newbie and just diving in, poking your toe into the pool and just trying to figure out, okay, what's this whole video thing about? I'm just getting started. You probably want to think about generating a video a month, okay? Just kind of getting your feet wet. You want to be thinking about that editorial calendar that we talked about, thinking about, well, what is that video? What are the elements of video and the content that we're going to be creating? But as you progress, you really want to be looking more towards, expert video. So if you look at those YouTubers that are unbelievable, the amount of content they're producing, they're publishing at least a video into their channel a day, because they're now competing for engagement. And so depending on the type of business that you have, you need to be thinking about making that progression in terms of your video content creation. So content applications. Here are some of the kinds of videos that you could be creating. Recruiting is really big. It's super important for your company and in your employment brand. And the head of HR is always frustrated that they're not getting the budgets that corporate marketing is getting to actually create marketing and video content. But this is a huge growth area that we see. So you're going to need to have at least a couple of videos relating to your employment brand and your career site. And then you're going to want to create employee testimonials and all kinds of things related to attracting new talent and retaining talent. In the sales, you want to be thinking about things like, how am I introducing my company to the world? How am I introducing a new product release? Customer testimonials are a really, really great way to tell your story without telling your story directly. I would highly recommend that you don't hire spokespeople to do this, paid actors. That's a big no-no. Definitely make sure they're your customers, okay? Personal brand bio, profile, storytelling video. Obviously, that's a big part of our business. We could go into any organization and do 150 videos of the executive team, the management, the employees, because these are companies who want to introduce their employees to the world and have them, if you may have a recruiting team, you may have a professional services team, you may have a sales team, and you want to give them the ability to have that video to post on LinkedIn and Facebook and other ways to get the word out. Thought leadership is also huge. This is a really great way to talk about your business in a way that's not directly promotional. So you're talking about your subject matter expertise, you're talking about your domain, you're talking about your industry, you're talking about trends and statistics and insights and sharing value. And that's really what a social video is all about, is giving value to your viewer, not just sort of selling something directly to them. And then, of course, marketing and engagement, looking at creative and original content, looking at humor, creating branded content, and all the sort of traditional ways that we've thought about video content in the past. There's lots of different styles of production, and I won't spend too much time on this because we did in the earlier session, but there are so many different ways to add value and engagement to video by using graphics and motion and animation and spokespeople from your company. I'm going to show some really super cool videos later today that are along these lines. Demonstrations. I mean, this really could be anything, but if you look at the graphic complexity to some of these videos, you don't want to do just straight talking heads where possible. You want to actually add a lot of other motion elements. This is DIY. So all of these videos were created using our platform, our tools, and they're fantastic videos. They all have high production values, and they were created using a mobile app or a desktop setup just like this one here. So this is a great way for you to, again, enable, if you will, your customers, your stakeholders, your employees to actually generate video right from their desktop. And in certain cases, what we do with clients is we actually they record the video into their dashboard in the cloud, and then we take their video content and we edit it and deliver it back to them. So it doesn't always, that could be the video capture piece, and then we do support them with editing, or they may have an in-house team to do the editing themselves. So it really just depends on where you place value in terms of the production workflow. So my final section is on outsourcing. So what functions or roles should I consider to outsource to vendors, and what are the things that I want to control in-house? I mean, the good news today is once you get a little savvy with this stuff, you can create videos so inexpensively. I mean, you can use stock footage to mock something that you would normally go out onto the street and capture. You can do it from, Timbuktu and not have to send anybody out into the field. It's really incredible. It just takes a little bit of savvy. Video Blocks is a really good place to start. I'm not being paid by them, by the way. I just am a real fan of video blocks because you can get so much for so little there. And you can plug stuff into your video. So there's a lot of things. You want to look for savvy on your team. You want people that are really plugged in terms of not just understanding video, but understanding how to do video affordably and effectively. Like people who are really tapped into all the different tools out there, because there are so many different things that you can use. I mentioned the whiteboard videos and the explainer videos. You've seen those probably with the characters and the animation. They're called explainer videos, whiteboarding videos. Those are an interesting, very, very popular approach to video right now. We get a lot of demand for that. That may be something that you can hire someone to create internally if that's part of your brand portfolio. So it really just depends. But what we typically see is even companies that have an in-house hiring team tend to still work with us on some key elements in pre and post-production. And that is things like producing an on-camera direction. So, there's a lot of parts of video that are fairly straightforward to do, but there are some that are very difficult. The very difficult things are script writing. So what am I saying and how am I saying it well in an engaging way that is going to make people want to watch and not drop off after those first 10 seconds. You need great script writers for that. You also need, because we're talking about real people now, not actors, you need to be able to coach people on how to present to camera effectively. And when you're dealing with clients like we do, everybody's nervous, right? You get in front of a camera, you put a camera in front of someone's face, it's scary. It's like, I'm not very comfortable with this. So you need to coach them through, how do you use a teleprompter? How do you present effectively? How do you present with a smiling face? How do you look natural? How do you make sure your eye line is not reading when you're working with a teleprompter? How do you gesture? There's so many things that are going to turn an average video into a really great video. And this isn't necessarily something that you're going to have in-house. It may be something that you want in-house, but that's something that you're going to want to think about, producing and direction, okay, and training, coaching, etc. The second is creative. I like to say, leave the creative to the agencies. And that's for your standard advertising, if you will. Like, creative's really hard to do, real creative. We have built a whole business around non-creative, if you will, working from companies' objectives and goals and key messages and creating everything else except for advertising content. And so the creative typically still resides with the agency, but now we've just seen this whole online video thing blow out, and people are creating video in all areas of their business. So creative is really hard to do. Obviously, people say, how do I create a viral video that's gonna just take off? And it's impossible. There's no formula. We all know that. There's no formula. There's lots of case studies that I can show you, and I'll show you a couple later. But that stuff is really by design, and people are paid big bucks to do that kind of creative. Content and scripting, I've really, I think, covered most of that. But if you have somebody internally and you want to start creating things that is more uniform with a template across the organization, then you can start to think about, how do I productize this and actually do it? So if if you have realtors or financial advisors or employees, there's certain kind of core elements of every script that you're going to want to have as being uniform. So those are some of the things that you can be doing internally in terms of content creation and script writing. But some of the tougher stuff, I mean, writers are writers for a reason, right? They're really good at what they do. So you can see that I'm delineating between creative writing and kind of corporate message writing. So with that, I am happy to, anyone who wants to have me send slides or the sort of breakdown of that studio setup, more than happy if you want to email me. If my email was there, I'd be more helpful. C Fennell, 2 N's, 2 L's, at videoBIO.com, or just come and give me your card after the session. And I hope you'll come back at 4, because that's going to be a really great hour of some really cool case studies and examples of killer dynamite videos. So any questions from you, comments? I'd love to hear where you're at with your video teams, anything that I didn't cover. In terms of software, we use Final Cut Pro and Final Cut Pro X. So we find that 80% of what we do, we don't need Final Cut Pro for. We have the kind of light version. For most of our editors use Pro X. And other than that, not really. I mean, we use After Effects. We use sometimes Adobe InDesign. We use Adobe Captivate, which is a really cool interactive video tool. But I would say 80% of our work is still with Final Cut Pro. There is a really great company called MixMove out of France that's right across the world, and they have, I would say, arguably the best cloud-based online editing tool. So you could check them out if you wanted to extend your editing capacity to a cloud. It's MixMove, MixMoov.com. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as well later, but that's what we're using. Okay. Well, great. Thanks for coming.